Welcome to our 2024 season of Cloud Industry Forum presents TWF. We're speaking to you from our mixed reality newsroom style set, courtesy of our friends here at Disruptive Live. And this is our weekly video podcast where we interview a guest from our members or from someone with something to say about cloud technology or artificial intelligence or transformation or what's coming next. I'm David Terrar. I'm the CEO of the Cloud Industry Forum, which is a not-for-profit trade body that champions and helps accelerate the adoption of cloud technology and services. If you want to find out more about us, we're at cloudindustryforum.org. I'm at DT on X, David_Terrar on Threads and Instagram, and you can find me on LinkedIn. Today's guest on TWF is in the thick of digitally transforming a well-known 90-year-old brand on the UK High Street. We'll be finding out about her approach to that transformation, and she'll be giving us ideas about how you future-proof your organisation. She's been in the UK CIO 100 and the UK's top 50 most influential women in IT. She's CTO for William Hill, Georgina Owens. Georgina, I'm delighted to welcome you to the show. Please, can you introduce yourself and your company and what you do?
Yes, good morning, and thank you for having me. As mentioned, currently at 888 William Hill. Although a very big UK brand with William Hill, we also have the 888 part of the family, which are a huge online global gaming brand, which is probably not so well known in the UK. Really big organisation. I think we've about 5,000 people. We have retail presence in the UK through our shops, which is what most people will know with the William Hill brand. I've been in technology for quite a while, worked across different sectors and many different organisations, some of the bigger companies like Vodafone, WPP, British Gas. So yes, lots of experience generally in transforming roles of different objectives. And I'm really pleased to be here today and not talking about AI.
I'm afraid I have to ask you a question about AI somewhere in the show. It's in the rules.
No.
Now, before we get into some of that and the future-proofing stuff and the like, what got you into tech in the first place?
It was luck, really. My parents decided to move to Africa when I was 6 years old, which was a real incredible life experience. But then they decided to come back, which was effectively in the middle of my GCSEs. So from an education point of view, a little bit of a challenge to kind of slot back in. And there was an opportunity to do something in technology, which was, kind of quite a neutral topic, which wasn't influenced by the fact that I hadn't been in the country, and so I took that route.
Excellent, that's good. We need a lot more women in tackling technology and in the STEM subjects. So it's always good to hear why you made that choice. Now, I've been watching 888 William Hill for a while, and I think you guys have done an incredible job in terms of the way you've transformed the organisation. What's your definition of digital transformation?
Digital transformation is, for me, how you use technology to the best of the business. And as we know, it's not as big now, but for years we were having some of the very large organizations come in and telling us that we had to transform digitally. And then COVID happened. And of course, COVID made everybody look at things differently. Technology came to the forefront because people couldn't leave their homes. We suddenly became much more of a cashless society. Although we'd been talking about it for a long time, it was just forced upon us, because people didn't want to hand over physical bits of coins and paper, because of the spreading of germs. I don't think anybody's really looked back and reflected on the exact scale of change that COVID forced from a digital technology point of view. So so that's sort of fast forwarded us, and now people talk less about digital transformation, and we talk more about business transformation, because technology is just woven throughout all organizations, and you can't do without it. So it's now, how do we take it to the next level? In fact, how do we unwind some of the decisions that we had to make during COVID, because we had to make them very quickly, revisit and look at the value that we got from some of those decisions, and say, what do we do to go to the next step?
Excellent. Now, part of that, I mean, I see some organisations who view this digital transformation topic as kind of a project that they've got to do. My guess is your view on it is very different.
Do you know, we're putting, everybody's always putting together transformation plans, right? Or, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 3 years. How long should the plan be? I think you have to have a North Star. You have to have a set of targets of what you want to achieve in terms of delivering and generating value for the business. But if you start on a transformation journey now, that is going to deliver in 2 years, just tell me, how are you going to ensure that what you are deciding now is going to keep you competitive in 2 years' time? Things are moving so quickly and so fast in the space of your competitors. You must be aware of what they are doing around you, and make sure that you're constantly updating your plans. And by the way, the other thing that has happened is that where you had traditional industries and their competitors were their traditional competitors, that's all blurred now with technology. Payments is just a great example. I mean, how many payments options are there out there? Who doesn't deliver a payment system, for example? So from a banking point of view, whereas banks used to take money, now anybody can take money through integrating with one of the payment systems. So the boundaries of who your competitors are have blurred quite considerably, and anybody could come in and offer you a bank account. A little bit harder for anyone to come in and offer you a betting sports platform, because entry to market for that is quite big. But actually, it's not that hard, so yeah, your competitors can come from anywhere now.
I get that. Now, part of the success I've seen, you at William Hill do is actually shifting a company from a kind of like new product life cycle of years to weeks. And you mentioned, COVID added to those challenges, and suddenly you have to do stuff in weeks. Tell us a bit about the challenges of doing those kind of changes, and how you tackled it.
I think, without sort of like sounding glib, but the kind of agile approach to delivering value in small incremental packages is how you stay on top of that. I think there's lots of companies that talk about being agile, and about delivering consistently and constant new features. And I'll talk about Spotify and Netflix, because they're such great examples. They are releasing and deploying new features all the time. We have the environment now. We're talking here about cloud and the relevance of cloud and how that has helped us. And that there's no doubt about it that enables you to do things much more quickly. We won't go into the economics of it, because I think depending on how you manage your cloud and how you've got it set up and how you use it, it can be efficient, and it can also be expensive, but that's a whole nother topic. So we have the ability to do things very, very quickly. I think what we don't do so well now is consider the customer experience. We don't necessarily consider the value to the customer and the commercial value to the business. And again, Netflix and Spotify are just great examples. And it's very different in a B2C and a B2B environment as well. I think in a B2C environment, business to consumer environment, you can release new features very, very, very quickly. Whereas in a business to business, it might not be quite so essential, so necessary, because whoever the business is that you're delivering the changes to may not be moving as quickly as you. So the mindset that you need for B2C versus B2B is different for sure. But how many times do you go on Spotify and something's changed and you're like, why did they do that? Just why? What has that done for me? That's just made my life more difficult. So kind of gone around the houses on that topic, I think. But I think what's really important, yet I've sat in the Amazon conferences where they're like, yeah, we deliver 1,200 features a day, and it's like, well, great, but what does that do for me as a customer?
Absolutely. Now, we first met at this year's Cloud Expo Europe event, and the presentation you did there, great presentation. One of the slides you put up was how difficult can it be when you were talking about all of these things? Explain a bit more about what you meant by that.
We have such a complex environment around us in terms of technology, and I talked about digitally native companies, as well as kind of companies that have lots and lots of legacy. And it, even a digitally native company that's been going for a couple of years will find that the minute that you introduce technology, it becomes legacy. So unless you, because you're on to the next big thing, right? You've already got the next idea, and we just don't have there's very few people, very few organizations that have the time and the capacity to remain constant with the legacy, because you've done it, it's there, you forgot about it, you're on to the next new exciting feature. And we have a far more scattered environment in terms of where we've got data, what systems we're buying and plugging into our ecosystem, if you like. And all of these things make it really, really complex, when you want to make a change. So architecturally thinking about future proofing, any of us that have been in the industry have heard about APIs and, building an API, having an API first strategy, API enabled, making sure that, the way that you design your systems, they're all, make sure that they're not tightly coupled, so that when you change one part of the environment, then you have to change another part of it. So all of these principles, these architectural principles for future proofing, are what you need to think about, because they will all impact any kind of transformation that you want to undertake.
Totally. Now, one of the things you also talked about was the willingness of an organisation to change, because obviously some of these things are quite a cultural change for an organisation like William Hill or the other organisations you've worked for. How do you go about changing that?
People are always going to be your biggest inhibitor to change. And I have many examples from past organisations where you can see people mentally impacted by constant change, because everybody has a different tolerance level, and some people just need absolute certainty. They need to know what they're doing, when they're doing it, and they really don't want that to change a lot. You'll get other people who are the opposite end of the spectrum, who are just like, yeah, let's do something different, let's do something different, let's do something different, let's do something different. And if you think about all of those people working together, taking them all somewhere else at the same speed is never going to work, and using the same style and the same techniques. So you need to think about all of the all of the different styles that you've got and how you can take those people with you. I mean, if anyone's done any kind of personality profiling, then you will truly understand how people think differently. I will never forget, a long time ago, I was on some training, and it was I think it was Belbin profiling, and they talked about all the different people, where you have shapers, where you have plants, and the way that people thought. And we had a workshop with one of each of the different personalities in there, and it just became really clear there was this one person who just didn't get a word in. Was his ideas were not considered, and the facilitator was great. The facilitator said, right, I want everybody else to shut up now, and Derek, tell us what you think. And he was shy, and this was difficult for him because he was very introverted, and he shared his views, and it was like, wow. Everybody else was like, wow, did you hear what he just said? And that has really stuck with me. It's always look for that quiet person in the room and pull them into the conversation and get their views, because they've probably got something very, very valuable to say. And if you don't make the time, I also love the quote, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So
another thing you talked about at the Cloud Expo Europe presentation was practical tips for future-proofing your organisation and staying ahead of the digital agenda. Give us a bit more of that, please.
Okay, so practically, how do you future-proof yourself? One of the things that I talked about was around how you work with your suppliers. So don't get locked in to relationships, contracts that will prevent you from changing direction. Now, I know that can be challenging, because very often when people sit down, the deal they'll put on the table, of course, is much better if it's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. But just think about exit clauses, and so I think that's none of us can survive without third parties. There's nobody these days that just builds everything themselves. So you will be working with partners and suppliers. So I think that is really important to be conscious of. I think in terms of, like I said earlier, architecting and thinking for the future. So how can you ensure that you design your systems that if you want to integrate something new, data at the moment always comes up as being an inhibitor. So how can you think about how you design where you store your data, and what systems are accessing it, and how you are copying it, and where you're copying it to ensure that you don't cause yourself integrity issues further on down the road. I think it's collaboration. Make sure that you don't have silos within your organization. So having that end-to-end enterprise view across all of your systems and how they connect is important. There's a few tips for you.
Excellent. Now, we produce a research report every year, and I've just got the data, and I'm just in the process of actually pulling together this year's report. And of course, it does cover some questions on the artificial intelligence topic. Actually, the research we've just done says that 94% of companies have AI in their long-term plans, and 62%, that's 2/3, are already doing something with AI. What's your perspective on AI, and has it changed any of what you're doing?
Yeah, of course. It's a hot topic, and everybody wants to get the benefits from AI. I think quantifying what those benefits are is still a work in progress. And I was recently with a bunch of my peers, and we were talking about the hype behind AI, and very often what is sold is not what you get. when you start implementing and start looking at how it delivers. We talked about three things, which was I think useful for people. So I think there's kind of like three different types of AI. One of them is just you just buy it and you use it. And what we're seeing is in some professions, I don't know if you're using Copilot, but we've just started using it, and it's quite incredible that that it summarizes for you at the end the main points and the actions, and it's like, whoa, that is really useful. But it's really useful. Have we quantified what that's going to do for us in terms of delivering efficiencies or values or making us better? Not yet, because it's still very, very new. But it's definitely something which you look at and go, wow. ChatGPT, a lot of people got a lot of value from it in the early days. Again, we were chatting about this earlier in the week, and we feel like that the hype, the curve on ChatGPT has hit the peak, and it's kind of going down a bit now, because it was sort of mid last year where it was like ChatGPT mad. There's no evidence on this, by the way. This was just purely talking to peers. But then there's the kind of, so that's the use, where you just buy something, you use it, plug it in, and it's great. We're seeing a lot of legal companies getting quite a bit of benefit out of some of those AI tools that you can use. Then you get the ones that you need to integrate a little bit, where you probably need to feed them with data. Those are a bit more challenging, because you need to understand your information architecture. You need to understand the quality of the data that you're going to feed into it. I'm sure you've heard crap in, crap out. So, it's no good if your quality of your data is not very good and you're feeding it into a model, then it's not going to necessarily produce the great results for you. And then there's the third one, which is build, where you're actually using AI to help you build, which is, far more complex, requires a lot more wrapping around it to make it work. So kind of quite liked those, those sort of three layers of distinction for AI. But I think we are very early on in the journey, and we still have a very long way to go and there's AI companies popping up all over the place. How many of those will survive? Again, in a conversation this week, someone compared it to the .com boom, and they actually thought that we might get to that bubble that will suddenly burst, and we'll see a lot of companies just fall away.
I think that's right. I think that's right. Now, you mentioned cloud already in some of your answers, but what's your position on cloud technology as an enabler for all of this?
Scary, very scary. It's clearly one of the biggest enablers, because anybody can now create their own technology just by using the cloud. You couldn't do that before. You couldn't go out and set yourself up a data center. It was just impossible to do that. But now you just need your credit card, and there you go. You have an entire environment that you can start building in, and then you can buy the tools where you can start building within that environment. I was told that we will need to, in order to meet the demands of AI, we will need to double the size of our current data center capacity. And from an environmental perspective, ESG perspective, that is quite scary.
Absolutely. Interesting challenges for all of us. So, to finish off for our audience, out of the stuff that we talked about so far today, what are the 2 or 3 most important things that you think would help you future-proof your organisation?
I think always look at the bigger picture. I think always don't just look forward, keep looking back. So, what do you have already? What is the state of it? And don't allow yourself a large legacy to build up whilst you're, focusing on the next shiny thing. And think about all of your upstream and downstream integrations and suppliers as well, because this is not, it's so easy to become siloed and to just be heads down and work on what you're working on. And lots of people like to be like that. But think about future-proofing your technology, your processes, and your people, and look at the whole ecosystem.
Excellent. That has been really illuminating, Georgina. Fantastic. If people want to find out more about what you're doing, how do they find you?
LinkedIn is the best place to find me.
Excellent. I'm sure you'll have a lot of people joining in and sending you connection requests. Georgina, that's been really great. Fantastic digital transformation story and some really practical kind of ideas to help approach this in a different way. Huge thank you for coming on the show. Thanks a lot, Georgina.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed what Georgina had to say about transformation and future-proofing and her kind of views on the approach to AI and the approach to cloud and the like. Some really interesting stuff in there. We'll be back live next Wednesday at 14:30, 2:30 UK time. We want your feedback. We want your suggestions. Maybe you want to be a guest on the show. Put some comments here in LinkedIn. Send an email to us, info@cloudindustryforum.org. We look forward to hearing from you, and we hope to see you next week or next time. Thanks very much.